Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Oh, welcome, David.
Thank you.
And this module right now, in the context of developing cross-platform application with web technologies, will cover the web application template, commonly called what?
What? Absolutely.
Who are you, David?
Who I am? I'm David Ketchu. I'm working for Microsoft, and I'm dedicated to everything related to open web standards and AI. I'm in a special team called DX for developer experience, and we are focusing mainly on discussion with web developers.
Great. I like your T-shirt.
Thank you. I have standards.
You have standards, definitely. The module today actually will cover a lot of things.
Yes.
So the first one is what?
That's a good question.
That's a good question, right? We'll explain how you can download what and how you can install that. We'll look into the various configuration files, the package manifest for the application, the app config file for what. We'll mention Apache Cordova, as in, how does it integrate into the story here. We'll look at how you can style your what application, what are the native functionality of the OS you can access, like camera and things like that, from what. And
my favorite feature.
And your favorite feature is the offline mode.
Absolutely.
Right? So being offline actually is something critical for an application, and we'll see how you can do that with what. And last but not least, we'll have a link to the various resources that will be useful for you as a developer to develop with what.
Yep. So what is what?
So what is what?
Yeah.
Good question. That's a framework that allows you to use a website as the foundation for your Windows Store app. So the idea here is that even though we can do JavaScript HTML5 development for Windows Store applications natively, right, without needing any sort of wrapper or WebView control, it's very interesting to see how we can help businesses bring their existing websites onto our platforms rapidly. Right? That could be step one of a new reach to our platforms.
Yeah, that's the philosophy. It's a step one, and if you want to go deeper into some specific feature of the platform, then you will be able to do that. Yep. And I have to mention that right now we have the support for Windows Phone Store and Windows 8 Store, but in the near future we will also introduce the support for iOS and Android. Interesting. That's really cross-platform.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Is it using Cordova?
Sometime it will be. We have to think about specific features. Right now we have a good support on Android without Cordova, and we are thinking about what we can do on iOS.
So the philosophy is bringing your website, adding some metadata around it, right? That's this config.json file we're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
And get an app on the store. How about I show you how that looks like? Let me show you on my screen here on my little device. I've got an application, the Home Depot one.
And I can see the tile.
You can see a tile first. Yes.
It's an app.
It's an app. It's integrated. I got it from the store, right? And from here, I can see something that looks very much like an app. It has a menu. I'm able to scroll through the content. I have a bar here.
The app bar is integrated.
Right? And not to spoil what we're going to show, but here I have an example of the use of a native resource. In that case, it's the camera to scan a barcode. And you can see the studio.
Hey, guys.
They're hiding behind the screens down there. Yes. So these are the guys actually delivering the MVAs for you guys. So I'm not
what you just shown us is a scanner, by the way. You can scan an item dynamically. It will be integrated into the app itself.
Yeah,
so it's really an app.
Yeah, and actually, when you're going to scan it, it's going to do a search into your app, right? So that's even more interesting. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's jump into it. Downloading and installing.
First step.
First step. Where to go? You need Windows 8.1.
Okay.
Right. That's it. A requirement that actually is pretty fine today, I would say. Visual Studio 2013, because the template will run on VS 2013. VS Express is good enough. So Express...
It's free.
It's free. It's the free version. You need to understand what JSON format is, right? But honestly, I don't know JSON a lot, and
it's pretty natural.
Yeah. It's pretty human-readable type of syntax, so that's pretty cool.
Sure thing.
Another thing important is having a responsive website, right? Well, it's not mandatory, But it's highly recommended.
Yeah, if you want to provide a good user experience, you have to have a good site that can be stretched into different ratio, meaning on the phone or on the tablet, that's different. So your site should be able to adapt to these different resolutions.
Think about what the market is. We're talking Windows Store, and Windows Store is about tablets, like all the way from small, tiny, 8 inches, all the way to gigantic screens like this guy here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So think about that in the way you develop your application. You can find what on the what.codeplex.com website. So that's where both the source and the actual VSIX file are for you to install the extension, the extension for Visual Studio. You can also use Git to clone the code. I think it's interesting if you find things in the code that you would like to change.
Or you want to contribute.
Back.
If you want to contribute, feel free. It's really an open source project. It's open to everyone.
Awesome. And it's just about double-clicking on the VSIX file, right?
Yeah.
Let's not do that now. Not mess up with the demo machine, right? And then once you have the VSIX installed, it's Start Visual Studio, File, New Project.
I can show you that, guys.
And you can show us that.
So switching to my computer, here I have Visual Studio, so 2013. I will go to New Project, as you can see here. And if I select JavaScript, because it's about JavaScript here, I have a new template, web application template for universal app. Pretty straightforward. I just have to create this project, and in a couple of seconds, I will be able to create directly an application for a specific website.
So do you have to download the website?
I don't have to download the website. That's pretty interesting with this kind of stuff. No, I don't want to give you my connection. Sorry about it. So by default, we integrated this specific page when you open the project itself. So you have some pointer to the documentation and things about the future support of W3C Web Application Manifest. We will talk about that later. Yep. But by the way, here, I just have a simple project. Here we have some extension that we will talk about after. There are more about supporting specific features like offline or integration with the platform. We will talk about that later. But basically here what we have an application for Windows 8.1. It's a universal application. So I also have Windows Phone, and we have a share environment. That's pretty much it. If I want to just specify that I want to start with this specific project,
which is the Windows Store version.
Yes, it will be the Windows Store version. Here, I have all the configuration shared between both applications, Windows Phone and Windows 8. So I just have to launch my project here. It will download for you specific feature required, like, for instance, here, JSON. The application will be compiled. And look, it's a pure application. I have here my top app bar. It's an application with interesting features, and what you are seeing here is the home page of web application template itself. Oh, I can change that. I just have, and you mentioned that before, to change this specific JSON file. It's a file where you can, and I will zoom for you guys, where you can specify, okay, please embed this specific URL. Here, obviously, I use what? What about creating an application for Bing?
Yeah, let's do that.
That's it. You just have to change that. And basically, my new application will be Bing.
Too easy.
Yeah, that's too easy, yeah, I agree with you. And it's an app. As you can see, I can manipulate the application like any other one. Obviously, I can put it here, play with this. Yeah, snapping, everything is supported. I can also show the SHARM bar here. We already have some specific settings that we can augment and add new features in it. Everything will be done just by declaring what you want into this specific config JSON file.
Awesome. Before you jump into the package manifest explanation, I have one question. So is Visual Studio allowing you to do some level of debugging, DOM inspection, and so on from here?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. You can see this specific application as a regular application. That's a true application.
Even though the content is a website?
Yes, because we are based on a technology called the WebView. The WebView with Visual Studio 2013 can be debugged, and I can drill down the WebView itself to open the website itself, gathering some information about the DOM or the JavaScript or whatever, defining some breakpoints into the code itself. It's like a regular application.
Got it.
But you control the content
Awesome.
on the website.
Awesome. So if your site is not working like expected on the app, then you're good to go with Visual Studio to debug it.
Yes, and we also have some great options that we will see quickly.
Yep. Okay.
So,
good.
Basically, everything is based on this manifest, on this JSON file. Sorry. First of all, if you want to define the application, some regular features are not into the config.json file itself. They are more related to the application. And when you are dealing with Windows 8 and Windows Phone, there are what we call the manifest. I can show you that quickly. Mm-hmm. Here, for instance, on Windows 8, I have the package manifest. Okay. It's some kind of, it's an XML file that with a visual editor here, where you can define the name of your application, the name that will be displayed on the store itself. Okay. The only thing that you have to keep is the start page itself. Please don't change the start page here, because everything is based on that. The application should launch this specific wrapper where the magic is done. Okay. Okay. So going back to the slide. Don't change the start page. Everything else can be defined. So you can obviously play with the name of the application. Okay. You can also play with different assets, like you want to control the tiles, the colors, the background, the logo. Everything can be configured, guys. You can create your own application. The content of the application will be gathered for you from the web, obviously. But everything else, all the design and the visual information, can be changed. Okay, you can also change the splash screen, as I can see here, and you can also add specific capabilities. At least, obviously, your application will download data from the web, so you need internet as a capabilities. Okay. But if you want to play, for instance, with geolocation, then you just have to check, okay, I will also play with geolocation. Click the location checkbox. Same story with the microphone, the camera, whatever. Okay. You can also define the packaging. So the packaging is the information that will be sent to the store itself. Here I want to give this specific name, this specific version. And I can also say who is the publisher. We can see here that Jeff Berthoff is the name of the publisher, because Jeff is the lead developer for this, for what? For web application template. That's why his name is here. The config file itself, I just shown you, is just in the config/config.json folder. Okay. Extremely simple. It's a purely, let me go back here. It's purely JSON, so a key and a value. Okay. That's it, nothing more. We added something really interesting, which is a schema. What's a schema? If I try to, let me open it again.
Is your keyboard working?
Sounds like the keyboard was not working. My keyboard is disconnected. That's interesting. It's funny stuff.
Did it run out of battery?
Perhaps. I may ask my friend from the studio. By the way, what I want to show you is that here, as you can see, my schema is defined. So if I want to type here an experiment for you guys, I will use the virtual keyboard.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, good.
The show must go on. So if I...
no, it's worse than that.
For instance, as you can see, if I just type something, the schema will help me with some kind of IntelliSense. For instance, you want to add geolocation? Not a problem. Just double-click on that. Geolocation. Okay, someone is changing my keyboard. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, my keyboard isn't working. It's not really working well. I don't have all the features of my keyboard. That's very interesting. Okay, let me continue. As you can see, I just type the comma, and automatically it said to me, okay, yeah, you perhaps want enabled, because enabled is a feature supported by the geolocation. Yes, I want enabled, and I want to set it to true. Okay. That's it. With just this specific line of code, I enabled into my application the support of geolocation. So if my website wants geolocation, it will work like this. Nothing more.
Awesome.
Okay, going back to my slide.
That's thanks to the schema to get the intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
the goal of the schema, the very first line we have here in the slide is just giving you some help while typing.
Got it.
You will be helped by Visual Studio. Okay.
Makes sense.
So by default, the minimal config file is this one. Just a schema for you guys to have some help. The name of your application, obviously, and where the data are. Okay, that's it. Good. Obviously, you can add more interesting options. Everything else is optional.
Okay.
Okay, that's pretty interesting because you can just play with that, but obviously you will certainly want to configure more your application. So our section is working. You always have what _ the section name, okay? And then you can have subsection, you can have options available directly into this JSON format.
Awesome.
You don't have to code. It's a declarative way of creating an application, and I appreciate that a lot.
You just made like half of the web developers run away here.
Yeah,
saying
no.
You don't have to code.
Guys, you can obviously code. It's a different
Actually,
topic.
we give you the option to not have to focus into the wrapper. It's easy to configure, make the web experience, and the wrapper will take care of the rest.
But yeah, as you mentioned, you have to code your website. That's the point.
Yes.
Obviously, there is a documentation for the config file. Everything is available online just there. Feel free to read it and use it. And Olivier, we perhaps should talk about navigation.
Definitely. Navigation through the pages, because obviously an application is about showing various type of data and in various ways and so on. So there are many ways that you can actually implement a navigation and how you can configure that. Well, first off, you can definitely just add links into your web app. So it's a web view control. So
it's about web.
It's about web. So you click on the link, it's going to go to that page. Even if it's an external link, right?
Yep.
So that means you're in your own app showing whatever, Home Depot, and you want to go into Bing, boom, Bing search is going to bring up the Bing webpage.
It's interesting.
Right, so why not? The thing is, then you can also think about adding things that are more native looking, right? More that integrate into the overall experience. You would expect, for example, to have a way to go back and forth from pages hitting the back button on the screen, right? So you have an overlay.
Or something in the app bar.
Or something in the app bar or nav bar.
Yep.
Nav bar on top, app bar on the bottom. And then you have that idea of a nested navigation.
Yes.
Which is also very interesting. Let's not dive into that right now, but the idea is really that you can take care of the navigation yourself. You can also configure what we call the automatic page redirects, like web content, right? So that's web. As a web developer, you know exactly what that means. We touch a little on that, the styling of the application, right? So navigating through the pages is important. Now the look and feel of the page is important also.
Yes, and you may want perhaps to change something on your website for your specific app. You may don't want to have exactly the same look and feel, depending on where you are.
Definitely, and the basics for that is things like viewport. You have to define that there's a viewport, right? Your device has a fixed size. So you know already what you want. There's also something interesting, which is suppressing the default touch action. What happens on a website when you pinch and zoom is fine, but if it's an app,
perhaps you don't want that. Or even when you are on a website and you want to navigate left or right by just sliding from left to right, perhaps you don't want that on an application.
Exactly. So you have control over that using this config here called suppress touch action, and you put it to true. Notice like the syntax of that file is very JavaScript-ish, right? A lowercase at the beginning.
We try to do that.
I like web developers. That's something that is for you. In terms of styling, then you have two different things you need to think about. The first one is the wrapper itself, right? The Chrome that we add on top of the web page itself around the web view control. Then you need to eventually consider styling the native elements themselves. We'll talk about that a little. And then there's the web application itself, and that's via the usual CSS injected styles, right?
That's funny because your website will send you some CSS, but you can override them. That's the funny stuff here. I love doing that. So, for instance, you can change the look and feel of Bing if you want to have your own Bing with your own colors on your own style.
My own pictures in the background.
Yes, definitely.
With my kids, right?
Sure.
Or your cats.
Or my cats.
Or
the pony of my wife.
Of your pony of your wife. Okay, let's stop here. Actually, you lost me with the body of your wife. Sorry for that.
You can inject CSS or you can control the Chrome.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And actually, I'm curious, what I'm about to ask, I'm curious to see how it's going to look like when you talked about the iOS and Android support. Because obviously, your what application, if you want to go for iOS and Android versus Windows Phone and Windows, you might want to give a different look and feel.
Absolutely. That's the main goal of these specific features, controlling the look and feel depending on where you are, on what you are running on.
Great. Another thing you want to do, once you style it, looks good and so on, is add functionality.
Sure.
On that Home Depot app, you've seen how I could actually bring up the camera, capture, I didn't capture any because I don't have any Home Depot barcode around here, but next time I need to think about it. So basically you can invoke the native resources, and basically is something that is very useful for your app in terms of the experience, the integration. The first native feature you might want to use on your Windows Store app, whether for phone or for Windows, is the tiles.
Obviously, this is an entry point of your application.
Exactly, and that's not only the entry point, but that's also the way Windows mobile devices work, right? And the idea is to be able to add information for the user at first glance. And in a nutshell, what we're talking about here is adding a feed, that the tiles can use to display the information.
Absolutely. The first point is what I mentioned into the manifest itself, where you can define your own pictures.
Yes.
And obviously, as you mentioned, you can also have live tiles, where the tile will be updated automatically by Windows itself or by the phone itself, just by reading some RSS data. That's pretty cool.
And so you have a primary entry to the application, which is what we call the main tile, and then you have a secondary one, which is actually another page. Let's imagine the main page of my Home Depot app, and eventually a specific section of it, Halloween. And I can bring a pin to the home page of the device to go specifically on that subpage on the device. For the primary tile, actually you will use the package ABX manifest file in order to configure that, looking into the Visual Elements tab, right? When it comes to the secondary pin,
it's just a declaration.
It's just a declaration in the JSON file, as always. So pretty straightforward. You enable that secondary pin. You put a text in there for the button that will be in your application to add the pin, and then you put the images that you want to show there, right? If you want the tile to be live, you add the live feed like that with tile poll feed function, declarative again, and that's the way you make that tile alive.
Let's imagine, for instance, for Home Depot, they have a website where there are some news using RSS. Then the live tile of your application will display this news. That's pretty amazing because you don't have to code anything, just declaring, I want the news on my tile. Thank you.
Yep. Awesome. Actually, question for you, David. When it's going to come to iOS and Android, with specificities that are proper to Windows,
yes,
will you have to delete that part of the code, or it would just be ignored?
They will be ignored, and obviously for some specificities for Android and iOS as well, we will add some specific section where you can declare that will be ignored by Windows.
Okay.
We try to keep things simple.
Easy. The next one is sharing.
Yeah.
If you've been using any mobile device, right, you're actually in an app. Very often, it's an app that displays information, news, and things like that, and you might want to share them. And in Windows, you bring up the charm, and you have a shared button, and all of the social media applications and reading lists and so on integrate into that experience.
Yes.
If you want to take advantage of that integrated experience from your What app, you actually can just invoke the shared charm from the application. It's pretty much like straightforward.
You want to enable it, and you say, I want to share a screenshot, a text, on URL. That's it.
Awesome. So the way you would actually do that is described, as you were saying, in the config file. And the thing here that we're talking about, sorry, I'm switching context here. We're talking about screen search now. So share, you bring it up, it shares, you define that in your config file. Screen search is another very important thing. You can actually have a search functionality into your What app, whether it's about searching in the app itself, through your website, for a specific word, or whether it's extending the search to more. But in that particular case, we're looking into searching within the website. And what I can see here in that search URL parameter in my config file is a link to myapp.com, which is basically the URL of your site, and search, question mark, something.
Yes.
So basically, that means the site has a search functionality in there, right?
Absolutely. So, and it will be integrated. So you will have, for instance, a small button into your hub bar. You click on it, a text box will appear. You enter your search, and we will send that for you to this specific URL, myapp.com/search.
Okay.
And the result will be gathered for you and displayed into the app. So the experience for the user will be like, hey, it's a regular application.
Awesome. Like the Home Depot example, I want to search through the
Same
store.
story.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome. Great. Easy. Geolocation, you mentioned that.
Absolutely.
So you can actually take it over from here because you mentioned the geolocation one earlier, right?
That's pretty straightforward. You just have to say, I want geolocation. And if your website is using HTML5 geolocation API, it will be supported freely for you. It's seamlessly. You don't have to do anything. Just ask for what to enable for you the geolocation. And the geolocation of the device will be made available for you to the application itself.
Nice. So that means as a user, in terms of privacy, do I get to allow the app to get the geolocation information?
As always. You have to allow your user, you will have some kind of pop-up. Hey, this application wants to use your geolocation. Do you agree? And you have to say yes or no.
So it's not because you're in a web view context using a website that actually
we are
gets
still in
more
the same
priority.
security context.
Love it. Great.
I can continue from here if you
offline
wish.
mode. So you have an app coming from the web, but we want an offline experience, right? Because the device might not be always connected.
That's the story. When you are on a web browser, obviously you are connected. That's the basics of a web browser. But when you are using an application, sometimes your application, you will launch it when you are in a subway or in some space where there is no network at all. And when you want to launch your application, you want some feedbacks at least. You want to have some, hey guys, this application will not work because you are not connected. You don't want just a 404, which will be the experience you may have on the web page. That's why we decided to support what we call the super cache.
Super cache.
I love this name of this feature. I work a lot on this specific feature. So what we want to do for you is to try to save locally information that you already seen. For instance, if you open your application Home Depot, we will save for you, if the super cache is on, obviously, all the content already gathered. And then if you want to use the application when you are offline, because we already seen the main page, for instance, this page will be saved locally into a cache, into an IndexedDB cache, and then we will be able to serve that even when offline. If the user wants to navigate to a page that the application have never seen, in this specific case, we will display for you a wonderful page saying that something like, I'm sorry, this page is not available, you have to be connected to show this page. The funny stuff is that even if you are doing some search, if you already did that search, it will work.
Awesome. Great.
So how we detect offline status, that's interesting because this is something almost supporting by the website. There are global events that the web browser send us. The web browser can tell us, hey, we are online, we are offline, so we can work with that. The problem is that it's not working well all the time, so it's important for us to have a great infrastructure. It's what we did with the offline support. So sometimes, even if we cannot download stuff for some reason, you are not exactly offline, but we cannot download stuff, the offline support will still work. That's important for us. So the user can only want online. That's an option you may have. The user can also have just a local solution for a specific offline scenario. So for instance, you have your own site, but you can also give us some specific page you want to display when we are offline. And obviously we have the gold version, the VIP version, with the super cache where everything is saved locally for you freely and seamlessly.
Great.
Sounds good. And obviously, I forgot to mention that, but it's just a declaration. You just have to say offline, enable, true. That's it.
I think you mentioned that several times.
Perhaps.
A declarative way of configuring your application for it to be available in the stores.
Yep.
You start from the website. We mentioned that in the previous module. You start from a website. You think mobile website, like responsiveness and so on. And now you're at that stage where you actually bring that web experience into the native experience,
including some native options.
Yeah, and we can see that, including native options, and we can see that we start having an overlap with the offline experience that Apache Cordova is really good at delivering. I do see What as a really good complement of Apache Cordova, maybe a step before, or if you're happy with where you're at with your web experience,
you don't need more.
And Supercache and so on,
yep.
You're good to go. Another thing we didn't mention, which is very important, actually to the overall experience of an app, the updates. Being a website, you can update it as many times and when you want. The content will be updated live for the user. So that's a very interesting
yeah, that's why I love
feature.
This version.
Great. The other couple of features we didn't mention, but integrating a business model, as in doing advertising and so on, or in-app purchase, a thing that you might want to think about, and what could be a good tool to do that?
Sure, because you like an application, so you have access to almost everything. We have a plugin system into Watt itself, where you can write some JavaScript-specific code if you want.
Yep.
That can be embedded for you into the application itself. So, for instance, you are talking about advertising. It could be in-app purchase or whatever. You want that just for your app, not for the website. In this case, the JavaScript required to do that will be developed into the Watt application itself and made this available only for the application and not for the website.
Great.
Pretty cool.
So we have 3 slides with resources that we want to show as a developer. Can you go through them?
Sure. You want me to go for the very first one? It's pretty straightforward. This is the website of Watt, where we have some information. You can download, obviously, the latest version. For now, it's for Windows. We are working hard to get the Android version and then the iOS version. Documentation here is available on a specific site, where you can find almost everything about the config.json file if you want.
Actually, it's in Visual Studio too, right? When you start
yes,
your
this
app.
is the same page. We are pointing you to this specific page, or to install or to create. We try to create a lot of, I can say that, a tutorial for you guys, so it should be easy to get started. And then if you want to go further, we have obviously a support over a forum. You can open case in the Codeplex site if you want, if you have issues, discussion with people. Everything here is supported for you.
As any open source project.
Yes.
Great.
And the schema itself, just an interesting point. Yeah. This one is the current living document about the W3C working on some kind of config.json file for everyone. So
I like the date of that document.
Yes.
Because it's like a few days ago.
Yeah, like 3 days ago, or 2 days ago even.
That's really a living document, and that's great to see how the idea of what is to go, with the standards. The idea is to deliver something that is standards compliant, but at the same time to propose an approach to W3C to make these standards evolve.
And if you're interested in that, you can start working right now with Watt, and we will be able, once the standard about manifest for web application will be ready, to migrate you from Watt to this specific standard. Awesome. We are discussing with all vendor browsers to try to define something that works well on all platforms.
Awesome. Okay. And we have a last few set of links that we can show rapidly for the attendees to be able to get to them, but you can also find them on the decks. The idea is to find some related reference. WinJS, we're going to talk about it.
Tiles, obviously.
In
the offline mode. I wrote a complete blog here. I can show you if you're interested in how the offline system is working. We explain you all the stuff we are doing for you under the hood.
Awesome. Well, thank you, David. I think it was a great overview of what is about, the web app template. And we'll follow up with more modules and sessions about cross-platform development using web technologies. And we'll see you later because you're coming back.
About 3D this time.
Thank you.
See ya, guys.